There's a whole bunch of dudes on TikTok right now calling out women for a stereotype, and unfortunately, Abby is being seen right now.
Yeah, I don't think I fall into a gender stereotype that is not allowing me to rep women well. So, like, have you ever ended up on incel side of TikTok where it's just like a bunch of men with microphones with all their little misogynistic takes? Like, you watch one Andrew Tate video on accident and then the rest of your For You page is just like horrible takes for days and days. Well, I had ended up getting into a bad news cycle like a couple of weeks ago, and I got on the side of TikTok where it was just men with podcasts with their little bad takes, and then women stitching it, and me kind of getting into this deep hole of listening to what men had to say. And I think I get kind of morbidly curious about what's going on in their little brains. You know, like what do they really think about men or women when we're not around? And there was this one TikTok video that was going around with one of those takes, and I had seen it going viral like months and months back, and it was kind of having a resurface on my For You page. And it was a couple of different podcasts with this same exact take. And the first time I had seen this going around, I'd kind of ignored it because I didn't think much of it, didn't think it really applied to me. And then it came up on my For You page a couple of weeks ago because a woman was stitching it. And then I saw all the stitches that other women were doing with it. And
for those that don't know what a stitch is, if you're not on TikTok.
So on TikTok, basically, you can attach your video to somebody else's video. So if I have a video where I'm like, tell me what your favorite color is, somebody can stitch that part and just keep the part where I'm saying, what's your favorite color? And they can stitch me with a video that says, my favorite color is aquamarine because it reminds me of my grandma's pool or something like that.
It's very fascinating stuff.
Yes, it really is. And especially when you get on incel side of TikTok. And so this take that was going around was basically men saying that most women are boring because they don't have hobbies. And I was like, wrong. I have hobbies. And all these
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are not a hobby.
Listen, believing in love is a hobby if you want it to be.
Okay.
Abby's like, wrong, man. I have hobbies and I'm still boring.
So it was all these women basically explaining what their hobbies were, and it was all these baddies like showing videos of them being equestrians and like cakes that they've baked and competitions that they've won and novels that they've written. And I was like, wow, women are great. What am I going to stitch with them to show that women have hobbies and interests and are awesome and have hobbies? And I was like, shoot, I don't have hobbies. I might be just as boring as they're claiming that I am. Because like I was really kind of feeling down because there are all these women like doing really cool things like knitting blankets and just all these incredible feats. And I'm thinking, what do I do every day? And I was kind of like, oh my God, I live in Groundhog Day. Like I wake up, I go to work, I work out, I read my little fairy porn books, I go home.
That's a hobby? That's a hobby.
Reading's a hobby?
Yes, reading's a hobby.
I thought hobbies were like things you had to do to, like, you create things, you reach goals. To me, reading is sort of like the equivalent of watching TV. Like, I'm doing it for entertainment.
TV's a hobby, too.
TV's a hobby?
We've had this fight before. We have had this fight before.
I know, and you were wrong then and you're wrong now.
Whatever.
Watching TV is not a hobby.
It's not a hobby.
It is.
But see, that's my opinion. Like, what's really the difference of me sitting down and watching a TV show versus reading a book purely for my own entertainment? Not like a self-help book of like how to be a good leader, like, you know, fairies banging.
Would you say going to the cinema is a hobby if you appreciate movies?
Going to the cinema.
Why did you just say going to the movies? You trying to put some spice on it?
I'm trying to bedazzle it so it qualifies as a friggin' hobby.
Going to the cinema is a hobby. Going to the movies is not.
There you go.
I actually know what she's saying. Like if you go to one of those independent movie houses and you're watching some independent movie, that could be a hobby. You go to AMC, you suck.
I watched Barbie, and that was a hobby. Thank you very much.
Abby, I feel like your overachiever status is showing. Like, a hobby is something that brings you joy that you do, like reading, and is active. You don't have to have an end result. Like, you don't have to produce the largest blanket. You don't have to bike ride the most number of miles. It's simply something that you do that brings you joy. Bird watching is a hobby.
Listening to true crime podcast is a hobby.
Oh, so
I'm with you here. I don't get, like, I don't think we are built this way. Like if I am doing something, I am doing something to improve on it, for me to look at it at the end of the day and go, oh, I got really good at that, or I won a blue ribbon. I don't understand the whole like doing something just for the fun of it and then moving on to work. I don't get it.
It doesn't make sense to me either. And don't get me wrong, there are things I do that I enjoy, but I think when I was watching so many women doing it with like these incredible end goals, like I saw this woman who was an equestrian, and I'm like, that's one hell of a hobby. And here I am just like reading Fourth Wing for the 5th time.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know why, but for me, it only feels like a hobby if it has an end goal. Like if there's some form of completion at the end of it that I've accomplished something, then it feels like a hobby. Whereas watching TV, you're just watching TV.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on now.
How about this for a hobby?
That's like saying sleeping.
No, stop. No.
Right.
The definition.
When does it stop if we allow TV to be a hobby?
The dictionary definition of hobby: an activity done regularly in one's leisure time for pleasure. That's the definition of hobby.
I mean, sitting on the couch and watching TV is not a hobby, man.
It is to some.
All right. How about this? You have a very successful podcast, The Breakup Breakdown, that you do in your free time for fun, and you just hit 1 million downloads. How is that not a super impressive hobby?
Because I got a check for it. I don't know. It feels like work to me.
like
Okay, but if somebody like knitted blankets and they sold them on Etsy for fun, is that then not a hobby anymore?
To me, then that feels like work again.
Yep.
I don't know.
Once you get a check, it's not a hobby anymore.
Oh my God. Well, then you work too much to have a hobby. There you go.
Yes.
Who's got time for hobbies, man?
I guess I'll take up Legos like the rest of the incels.
Weren't you also the person that said your kids were a hobby?
Yeah, but I backtracked on that. That was just a sad place I was in that day.
The Bert Show.